This might be the hardest survival game in existence, because simply standing on the ground is an almost impossible task. So let's see if it's possible to beat it. My name is Graeldon, and I'm reviewing Steam games in alphabetical order to find the hidden gems among the piles of garbage, and today we're playing 100 Days. Let's begin. 100 Days is an early access first-person survival crafting game brought to us by SM Games. It first appeared on Steam on the 18th of August 2021 and was last updated never. Now, in all fairness, this game is still in alpha, and likely always will be, and according to the Steam store, it features AI, a construction system, crafting, an underwater world, which we'll see later is really stretching the definition, and instant saving. When having a working save system constitutes 20% of your features, you should realise that you're really grasping at straws to find selling points for your product. Oh, it should also be mentioned that this game in its current state costs $2.29 Canadian, which isn't much, but is still about 57 cents per feature listed. So let me share with you my experience playing 100 Days. Firstly, here's the title screen featuring a stylized font for the logo on the right and then what looks like basic Arial font for the menu choices on the left. Love the consistency already. The wooden driftwood style planks for the buttons are a nice touch though, adding some thematic elements to an otherwise simple screen, and I love that they each have a unique design rather than being copy-pasted. They also have a slight jiggle animation that plays when you cursor over them, which I later discover causes them to vibrate in a disconcerting manner if you place the cursor in the lower right, presumably because the click box for the button also rotates with the visual. Heads up, this is more entertaining than the majority of the game we're about to play. Diving into the options menu, we can enable or disable sounds, and there is a drop down for graphical presets where the font for the fast option overlaps with the border. The devs really couldn't make a bigger wood asset or make the font smaller? Nah, but I'm nitpicking, this is alpha after all. I'm sure the UI will be cleaned up when the game eventually releases. Moving into the play menu, we see that there is only one save file, so your choice is only to continue or start over, which is a weird way to relabel the typical load or new game buttons, but more importantly we have a tutorial, and whoo boy is this certainly something. The left hand side shows the basic controls, the right hand side explains how basic crafting works by showing the recipe for creating a shovel, and then leaving you with and etc., which is essentially just like a mother bird shoving a chick out of the nest and expecting them to figure out flying before they hit the ground. I especially love that the stone is represented with text, the stick gets both an image and text, and the shovel just gets an image. Lastly, and what will potentially be my most pedantic criticism ever that may still trigger someone's OCD, I feel compelled to point out that the font size for the word none next to days is slightly larger than the word none next to date. You're welcome. Right, let's get into the game. Upon starting a new game, there's a loading screen with a basic green bar and a cute crab icon, followed by a second loading screen that says almost ready, because we evidently needed a loading screen to load the actual loading screen, and then the screen fades in to reveal us standing on a low poly island. The sound of soaring and hammering something is heard, and we see ourselves surrounded by water and lots of crabs. Later, I'll realise that the sound I heard was the crafting sound effect, but as to why it played, I still have no idea. There are a few birds flying around that I take a moment to admire, after which I promptly lose grip on reality and fall through the ground for having the sheer audacity to try to walk anywhere. All hail the void! Honestly, this game might benefit from a speedrun category for falling out of bounds the fastest. I felt like the devs had just slapped my wrist like you would a naughty child in an art gallery, because this is clearly meant to be looked at, not touched, and obviously I was in the wrong here. Undeterred, I decide to start over, and this time upon loading I'm able to move around, gliding over the sand much like the animationless crabs do. So what are we doing here anyway? The game won't tell you, but the store description does, and to no one's surprise, the goal is to survive for 100 days on this island, a goal that is surprisingly easy and seemingly impossible at the same time. Left-clicking anything in the world will make a tractor beam appear that allows you to move things around, similar to the gravity gun in Half-Life, but much less fun. You also can't pull things closer or push them further away, only move them side to side or up and down. However, the game has a somewhat unique crafting system in that it's not done in a menu, but instead by colliding two items together in the actual game world. Following the instructions from the tutorial, I combine a stick and a rock to make a shovel, after which my tractor beam of light stays stuck in the ground. But I can use my shovel to make giant piles of dirt, which is pretty neat. I decide to experiment with the crafting a bit, grabbing a nearby piece of bamboo, but sadly it doesn't combine with sticks. Fun fact, this is the only piece of bamboo in the entire game, and I have no clue what it's used for, if anything. Plonking down my first pile of dirt on the sandy shores rewards me with an achievement. For making a wall. I mean, technically it extends slightly above the surface of the ground, so it does somewhat qualify as a wall, but certainly not for humans. Maybe it's a wall for ants. I'm also rewarded with what appear to be seeds, but unlike in the trailer footage, I'm not able to plant them. This is somewhat of an issue, because if you have noticed the slowly decreasing hunger meter in the bottom right, you'll know that food will be needed to survive all 100 days, and it doesn't look like I can grow any. As it turns out, growing food will be the least of my problems, as after building an actual wall out of dirt, I'm promptly ejected from the world yet again. This time, however, I decide to reload the world rather than start over, and thanks to the game's amazing save system, I simply reload into an abyss. Starting for the third time, I manage to grab a bird out of the air, make it spaz out by touching the ground, admire the frankly awful modelling and texturing, release it, and then fall through the ground again. We're 3 attempts in and I haven't even made it to the first night yet. For round 4, I concluded that the island's surface is probably kind of buggy, so I decided to try to go exploring. On my way, I get gassed by this weird jack-o'-lantern-esque plant thing and promptly make a tactical retreat. Exploring the starting area a little more, I find some planks and get to experimenting, eventually discovering that combining them with a stick makes a crafting table. Table in hand, I decide to make a break for the mainland, only to accidentally awaken a black cloaked bird thing with glowing eyes that floats towards you menacingly forever. I make it to the shore, place the table, and then panic as the monster rises out of the water to fire lasers at me, and I die. At least this one wasn't caused by falling into the void. Round 5 begins and I manage to quickly craft a shovel, a crafting table, and I discover that combining a plank with a stone makes a pickaxe. This might be an actual game changer, as presumably I can now mine for resources and potentially make a weapon to fight my way safely off the island. I'm immediately distracted though by trying other crafting combinations with the planks. I make a second shovel and discover that there is in fact no way to drop items or open any kind of inventory, and then fall through the world again. Round 6 begins. I craft a pickaxe and get to mining a nearby rock. Pause! Viewers, place your bets in the comments below. Which of the following items do you think I will gain from mining this rock? A. Small rocks like those on the beach. B. Stone as a resource. C. Coal. D. Iron ore. E. Planks. Or F. Absolutely nothing. Make sure you've got your answers locked in, because the answer is, drumroll please, E. Planks. If you got that right, you're either a cheater, a wizard, or a regular viewer of this channel. Either way, congrats. In this universe, stones are actually an incredibly limited resource, as the only ones you can craft with are the ones laying around, but thankfully tools aren't able to break, so you'll never need to replace them. It turns out that you can also use the pickaxe on a plank to turn it into 2 sticks, but you can't combine 2 sticks to make a plank. But that's fine, because we have infinite planks now, as the rocks don't deplete. I should also point out that shovels and pickaxes don't appear in the hand of your character. In fact, nothing ever does. The hand could be removed completely, and it would probably improve the game by reducing screen clutter. Now, in a weird moment, I also discovered that combining a plank with a stick will open an actual crafting menu where you can create various walls, floors, and ceilings for building, well, buildings. There's a few problems here though. Firstly, crafted items appear at the current location of the cursor, which sometimes creates them beneath the floor. Secondly, as you may have guessed, the building mechanics are plain awful, and getting anything to align or connect properly is an exercise in futility. And thirdly, this is the same crafting recipe as for the crafting table, 1 stick and 1 plank. After this moment, I was never able to create a crafting table ever again. I also have 2 pickaxes and no way to discard the spare one, so my inventory space is now reduced forever, or at least until I'm forced to restart again. Night is rapidly approaching, so I attempt to create a shelter only to get ambushed by a bird cultist and forced to make a break for it. Turns out at night they spawn randomly in the sky and then are activated when you get close enough, causing them to fall from the sky and begin chasing you. Once again, I am killed and return to the main menu. For round 7, I craft the basics and then make a run for it, as clearly the beach is dangerous at night, but perhaps elsewhere is safer. I have to make it past a sleeping monster though, so I decide, screw it, if the pickaxe works on planks and rocks, maybe it works on monsters. And it does. 1 hit, 1 kill. The death animation for the bird cultist is unexpected and a nice touch, and after admiring the lingering laser beam, I run for it and try out the pickaxe on an actual tree. Maybe the dev coded something poorly and got things backwards, so rocks give planks and trees give stone. No, trees also give planks. Cool. I spot a shack partway up the mountain and decide to check it out, as it might serve as a decent shelter for the night. This is partially true, as it's in need of some repairs, but it's not a great shelter overall, considering you can still fall through the floor by looking at it the wrong way. I was actually not bothered by monsters during the night, so I used a nearby rock to gather some planks, break them into sticks, and craft some walls to fix up the shelter. This was a dumb idea, as I promptly fell through the ground again. You'd think I'd have learned my lesson by now, but no. Round 8 played out much the same, with the only real discovery being that you can walk underwater and there is no breath meter. Everything just turns blue the moment you touch the water. I explore a half-sunken ship and then fall through the world again. Round 9 is my final and longest round. I manage to craft the basics for survival and then go exploring, discovering a ruin on a hill and a cave. The cave can't be entered, so no mining resources for me, but the ruin appears to have some items at the top just out of reach. I can craft some stairs to get there and foolishly decide to head down to the beach. I figure I've got 100 days to kill, so why not spend some of it building a massive staircase back up again. Turns out, stairs are a bit steeper than the player can easily move up, so if you take them at an angle or try to change directions, you'll either stop moving or begin to slip back down again. As you can imagine, this is something of a problem. Regardless, I make it back up after scaling the cliff face Skyrim style, craft some stairs and manage to get into the resource room with my hunger meter in the single digits. Luckily, the items are food. I'm saved. And eating them doesn't consume the items, so I have an infinite supply. There's also a chest nearby that does nothing, but I'm convinced it was placed there simply to mock me for not finding the final one in 100 chests. Worryingly though, after raising my hunger back to 59 out of 100, it drops back to 3. And then 1. I quickly eat to raise it back to 100, only to see it drop to -1 moments later. Huh. I'm still alive. I can only speculate that the hunger meter isn't coded properly and is perhaps lowering from its previously lowered value rather than from the new value it was raised to. Now immune to the fear of starvation, I go exploring further and realise that although I'm now on day 4, I only remember seeing daytime twice. And after reviewing the footage, the timer indeed skips from day 1 to day 3. Amazing. I find some string in the mountain hut and head back to the beach to continue trying different crafting combinations, and then fall through the ground again. At this point, I decide to embrace the void once and for all. We've seen everything this game has to offer. We've seen the crafting, the combat, and explored the island. I could find a safe place and stay perfectly still until I've seen 100 sunrises and sunsets, but in all honesty, considering that a full day takes a bit over 7 minutes and I've already played over an hour of this nightmare, let's just say that I've experienced 100 days because it's easier for everyone that way. When thinking about the verdict for 100 days, I've tried to keep in mind that this is basically abandonware in an early alpha state. That said, it's still a paid product, but unlike something like 001 Earth, it doesn't claim to have features that aren't in the actual available product. It does have crafting and a construction system. It does have things underwater. It definitely has a functional save system. And enemies will path towards you on the shortest route, which is technically AI, but not anywhere close to what we consider AI to be today. It's not a dishonest game, but it's clearly not a good one. It's definitely been released onto Steam too early and is either a passion project of a small team or an attempt to cash in on the survival craft hype that was prevalent in the early 2020s. I could go into detail as to what needs to be fixed in this game, but that list would be too long, and there's not a single component that is in a complete state. So instead, let's talk about what I enjoyed. I liked the attempt at an in-world crafting system. This is something that's been done to great success in other games though, especially VR titles, but it is still more immersive than crafting menus. I liked the monster designs, creating a feeling of fear of the unknown. It was vaguely reminiscent of early Minecraft, where so much was still unknown about the game. I also liked the general layout of the island, as I enjoy exploring ancient civilizations and ruins. The world simply needed a lot more things, like music. Other than a few sound effects, the game was silent the entire time. With a ton of love and polish, this could have been a neat entry in the survival crafting genre, but as it stands, I'd steer clear of it. As such, my final rating for 100 days is a shipwreck out of 10. There's enough there to imagine it as something greater, but it's currently unusable. Welcome to the end of the video. As always, a massive thank you to all the channel members on screen for supporting the channel, with a special thank you to our Knight of the Holy Grail, Freaky Feline. I'd also like to thank you for joining me on this weird gaming adventure through the depths of Steam, and if you've made it this far, here's a sneak peek of the next game. But until next time, take care.